Now, Sean O'Malley is the world champion. What does that mean? It means a wide range of things for the UFC's bank account and also for his superstardom shooting up to the top of the mainstream. Now, the other thing that you have to understand in the other component of that aspect is the super fights that have to come with that, because superstardom doesn't come in the UFC or in MMA without a dance partner or big marquee matchups that people can remember you by. So some of the matchups that you're going to think about with Sean O'Malley, for one, you're going to have Omar Nurmagomedov as a big part of a future matchup. And we're talking about way after, let's say, the immediate obvious ones, which could possibly be an Aljo rematch. Considering that Aljo had been a very dominant 135 champion to the point where now the UFC is even considering giving him a rematch and giving him another go at Sean O'Malley, which, by the way, is very problematic for Merab. Why? Because Merab wanted to be the loyal soldier that he is when it comes to, let's say, Aljo and his stablemate. He said that he didn't want to take the title fight that he could have easily had against Aljo had these two guys been training in different teams. For those that don't know, Aljo and Merab are top two bantamweights in the world, and not only at that, they train in the same gym with Ray Longo. So what's problematic about that situation is the fact that you're dealing with a situation in which now Sean O'Malley has all these wide ranges of options. The other option that I could really come up with in a future tense is, let's say, Muhammad Mokaev. If he becomes the world champion, guess what? He's going to want to test himself. And that's a possible future matchup for Sean O'Malley. Another one in mind is, let's say, Sean O'Malley taking on Chito Vera once again for a rematch. And either one of these options can be great. Now let's talk about the business side of Sean O'Malley. Okay. For one, Sean O'Malley is very marketable for the young audience and the young demographics of people. And this is very good for the UFC because for a long time, the UFC has been building their fan base on guys that are, let's say, now 30 years old, 30 plus, 40 years old. And these are the guys that grew up watching the Chuck Liddell era, the George St. Pierre era, the Anderson Silva era. These are the people that are now been longtime fans. But now, in order to shoot into the mainstream, which they have been doing with the Fox deal, the ESPN deal, and all of the above, now they want to shoot to the next level of mainstream, which is what? Well, take a look at all the modern rappers today. You see all these different guys, Little Durk, Little this, Little that, Young G, NLE Choppa, all these young rap acts out there, right? Tekashi 6ix9ine, especially in his prime days. Okay, so those are numbers to consider. You look at the type of numbers that these people get on YouTube and the type of views they get on different streamlines where you can listen to their music. This is the type of demographics that Sean O'Malley is attracting into the UFC. So on the business side, he's going to attach that audience into the UFC, create interest around his fights, and not only that, create a new fan base of people that now the UFC needs in order to move to the next level. And I'll tell you what, I got to go back to the last fight that Sean O'Malley did in UFC Boston, which was UFC 292. That right there is one thing that you can't take away from that. Because obviously, Sean O'Malley is going to have more championship fights in the future, more super fights in the future, and then on top of that, he may even do a crossover boxing match with Gervonta Davis And all these things are in the horizon of his reality and his scope and his reach. Okay? So now that you have that going on with Sean O'Malley, you got to think to yourself, what was bigger than any of those moments or future moments that he's going to have? What's bigger than that was the first time that he was able to win the championship. That right there is a very special moment that you can never take back, that you can repeat, but it's never going to be the same. You hear Israel Adesanya, and by the way, shout out to him fighting this weekend against Sean Strickland in a headline for UFC Sydney. What's great about Sean O'Malley's first time winning the championship is that there is never going to be a first time again and again and again, just like what Israel Adesanya says, right? Again and again and again, feel this again and again and again. Well, he's done that again and again and again. He's defended the titles again and again and again. He was successful at doing that. But he was also successful at not only retaining the championship, but also gaining it back after losing it. But let me tell you, one of the most magical moments that you got to understand about Sean O'Malley's career is that the first time will never be another time ever again. And that's what makes it special. But yes, keep in mind, he is going to have these future championship fights and super fights in the horizon. But the first time of winning that title in Boston, it's priceless. You'll never get that back. But that's why, whether it's the past, present, or future, we're always going to enjoy the fights.